There's one skill that, if you master it with precision, will make women stop seeing you as another option and start feeling like leaving you would cost them something real. And no, it's not your looks, not your money, not your charm, not your lines, not your game. It's deeper than all that. More powerful, more primal. And if you handle it the wrong way, it can blow up in your face because power without maturity doesn't create love, it creates chaos. Here's the quote that fits this title perfectly: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Seneca, why that quote? Because most men don't lose women to reality. They lose women to neediness, overthinking, fear, and emotional leaking, the invisible behaviors that silently scream, "Please choose me." So, what's the one thing women chase? Emotional self control. Not coldness, not distance, not playing games, but calm, steady, grounded control over your reactions, especially when you care. Because a woman's desire doesn't attach to effort, it attaches to how you make her feel when the moment is uncertain. That's why you've seen this unfair looking pattern. Some men barely try, yet women circle them like gravity. Other men do everything right, kind, attentive, supportive, and still get ghosted, replaced, or quietly filed into the safe, but not desired category. It's not because kindness is weak. It's because overinvesting is often a mask for fear. And women can feel fear the way you can smell smoke long before the fire shows up. When a man is emotionally controlled, he sends a message without speaking: "I want you, but I don't need you to be okay. I'm present, but I won't beg. I can lead myself, which means I can lead a relationship." That combination creates something rare: safety plus tension. Safety makes her trust you. Tension makes her desire you. And if you want women to chase, here's the brutal truth: women chase what they can't predict, but they also chase what they respect. So when you master emotional self control, you stop performing for love. You stop auditioning. You stop trying to convince. You become the man who chooses calmly. And that flips the whole dynamic. You move from chasing signals to being the signal, from reactive to deliberate, from desperate to dangerous in the best way, dangerously steady. Now, if this already hit a nerve, do the simple thing, like the video, because this is the kind of truth most men never hear until it costs them years. And subscribe if you want real female psychology, not fantasy advice. Because next, we're going to break down exactly how to practice this skill in real situations: texts, dates, silence, conflict, so you don't just understand it, you embody it. 1. The misconception that ruins most men. Here's the hard truth most men never hear, and it's the misconception that quietly ruins their chances without them ever realizing why. The majority of men believe attraction is about being wanted, about hearing her say yes, about seeing fast replies, warm laughter, and frequent invitations as proof they're doing everything right. And at first, this illusion feels powerful, even addictive. Because being wanted feeds the ego and delivers that quick hit of validation that says, "I've figured it out." Don't fall for that trap. Want is fragile. Want is temporary. Want is shallow by design. A woman can want many things at once without feeling anchored to any of them, because want lives at the surface of female psychology, responding to mood, convenience, novelty, and emotional weather. Today, she may want attention, tomorrow, reassurance, the next day, excitement, and none of those wants create a bond that lasts. They're preferences, not pillars. They are menu items, not commitments, and anything that functions like a menu item can be swapped the moment something more appealing appears. Be honest with yourself. You've seen it happen. A man is wanted intensely one week and quietly replaced the next, not because he failed, but because he built everything on want instead of understanding the deeper layers of female psychology. That is where psychology tricks often mislead men, teaching them how to trigger interest, but not how to sustain emotional gravity. Now listen closely, because this is where the real shift happens. Need is different. Need does not ask for permission. Need does not negotiate. Need bypasses logic and settles directly into the emotional nervous system. When a woman needs something, it becomes part of how she regulates her inner world, how she calms anxiety, how she finds grounding in chaos and relief from uncertainty. This is not about control or manipulation. This is about presence that stabilizes. When a man becomes emotionally grounding, when his energy provides clarity instead of noise and steadiness instead of pressure, he stops being a choice she evaluates and becomes a constant she feels. That is female psychology at its core. Want fades because it's optional. Need persists because its absence creates discomfort. When something is truly needed, its removal is disruptive, and the mind and body will naturally seek to restore balance. That's why wants change so easily. A lifestyle, a personality type, a surface level attraction can be replaced without friction. Need cannot. It lingers. It pulls. It calls her back even when she tries to move on. This is where most men sabotage themselves without realizing it. They work tirelessly to be wanted. They become overly available, overly accommodating, endlessly responsive, believing that effort equals value. Don't do that. Availability without boundaries signals replaceability. When you remove all friction, all tension, all emotional consequence, you teach her that life without you is not destabilizing, only slightly less comfortable. Be clear. Optional things are the first to go when priorities shift. You must stop trying to be impressive and start being grounding. You must stop chasing reactions and start embodying emotional certainty. That is the one thing that changes everything. When you are calm where others are reactive, steady where others rush, and self-contained where others seek validation, you activate something far deeper than attraction. This is where psychology tricks stop being gimmicks and start aligning with real female psychology. Women don't chase what begs to be chosen. They gravitate toward what feels essential, reliable, and emotionally stabilizing. That is the difference between being wanted and being sought after long term. Be the man whose absence is felt, not because he demanded attention, but because his presence brought order, clarity, and emotional safety. That is how chasing flips. That is how desire deepens. And that is how you stop being an option and start becoming a necessity. 2. The need shift changes everything. Not a little, not gradually, completely. When attraction moves from want to need, the relationship stops behaving like a negotiation and starts behaving like gravity. Before the shift, a woman evaluates you with logic. She compares. She measures. She weighs options the way someone scans shelves in a store. Is he better than the others? Does he check enough boxes? Is this worth my time? But after the shift, the questions change. And when the questions change, the game ends. She no longer asks who you are on paper. She asks who she becomes without you. How do I feel when he's gone? What happens to my emotional balance? What space opens up that I can't fill? And when she feels that gap, it's unsettling. Not dramatic. Not theatrical. Quietly disturbing. Because the absence isn't neutral. It's uncomfortable. It's a disruption she can't ignore. That's when attraction stops being optional. This is where many men get lost. They think effort creates attachment. It doesn't. Effort can earn appreciation, sure, but appreciation is not desire, and desire is not need. Women let go of what they merely want all the time. They move on easily, gracefully, without regret, like last season's fashion. But what they need, they circle back to it. They think about it at night. They protect it. They pursue it without fully understanding why. That's the difference between trying to attract women and becoming unforgettable to them. Until you feel this distinction in your gut, not just understand it intellectually, you'll keep confusing motion with momentum. You'll mistake attention for influence. You'll think consistency is power. It isn't. Power comes from emotional imprinting, not availability. Keep pouring effort into a connection that hasn't crossed the need threshold, and you'll feel like you're pushing a stalled car uphill. Exhausting, futile, humbling. Now let's talk about the most misunderstood phrase in modern dating: I miss you. Men love comforting stories. Stories that preserve dignity. Stories that explain pain without forcing growth. She misses me because I treated her well, because I listened, because I showed up, because I wasn't like her past. It sounds honorable. It feels mature. It feeds the identity of a good man trying his best. But here's the uncomfortable truth: that story gives you zero leverage. Women don't attach to people the way men assume they do. They don't bond to resumes, personalities, or effort logs. They bond to emotional states, to how they feel in your presence, to what their nervous system learns when you're around. When she says, "I miss you," she's not replaying your kindness in her head. She's reacting to a feeling she can no longer access, something her body recognized, something her mind relied on. Maybe it was calm, the kind that quiets her internal noise. Maybe it was excitement, a charge that made ordinary moments sharper. Maybe it was relief, a space where she didn't have to perform. Maybe it was tension, the good kind, the kind that keeps curiosity alive. Maybe it was validation, not flattery, but a felt sense of being seen. Whatever it was, that emotional state became associated with you. That's how attachment forms, not through effort, through experience. This is where becoming a high-value man has nothing to do with arrogance or performance. It's about emotional leadership, about regulating yourself so fully that others feel different simply by being near you. Don't chase reactions. Don't force connection. Don't try to manufacture longing. Be grounded. Be self-directed. Be emotionally steady. That is what creates contrast. That is what teaches her nervous system something new. That is how you learn how to fall in love without losing yourself, and how you make someone else feel safe enough, curious enough, and engaged enough to lean in on their own. You must stop trying to be missed and start being felt. You must stop asking how to attract women and start asking what emotional state you consistently create. You must stop proving your worth and start embodying it. Do this one thing. Become the place where her emotions settle or ignite in a way she can't replicate elsewhere. When you do, chasing disappears, comparison ends, and desire stops being a choice. That's not strategy. That's psychology. 3. The paradox that confuses men. Most men are confused by a paradox they see play out again and again, and it quietly eats at their confidence because it doesn't obey logic. Two men can approach the same woman in completely opposite ways and trigger radically different reactions. And the man who does everything right often ends up forgotten, while the one who appears imperfect occupies her thoughts relentlessly. One man shows up like clockwork, listens deeply, reassures constantly, offers emotional availability on demand, and becomes background noise in her life, while another man is less predictable, not emotionally flooding the space, slightly reserved, not always available, and somehow becomes the emotional gravity she can't escape. And the mistake most men make is assuming this outcome has anything to do with morality, kindness, or effort when it does not, because attraction is not a reward system. For good behavior, it is a response to emotional regulation, and the man who becomes unforgettable is the one whose presence changes how her nervous system feels in real time. When you understand that dependency is not created by giving more, but by becoming the environment where her inner chaos quiets or her dormant sensations awaken, everything shifts. Because the moment your presence stabilizes her emotions or elevates her internal state in a way she cannot recreate alone, your absence creates imbalance, not sadness, but disequilibrium. And the human nervous system is wired to correct imbalance automatically, which is why logic collapses here and why she may fully recognize your imperfections on an intellectual level while still feeling irresistibly drawn to you, because as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and emotion always outruns reason when the body is involved. This is not manipulation. This is mechanics. This is Old Stoic wisdom applied to modern relationships. And once you accept the truth most men avoid, that she does not miss you as a person, but misses the emotional state she experiences in your orbit, you stop chasing validation and start positioning yourself correctly. Because attraction is not about being needed, it is about being irreplaceable as a source of emotional alignment. And Seneca captured this perfectly when he said, "We suffer more, often in imagination than in reality, because the man who triggers imagination, emotional contrast, and internal movement will always outcompete the man who tries to remove all tension." This is where masculine energy matters, not as force or control, but as grounded emotional leadership, the ability to remain centered, calm, and internally sufficient regardless of her reactions, because when you are regulated, you regulate others. And when you are grounded, others feel safe and alive around you. And this is why Stoicism Win is not a slogan, but a strategy, a way of moving through life without chasing, explaining, or performing, letting your presence do the work. In modern life, where attention is fragmented, emotions are overstimulated, and most people are unconsciously dysregulated, the man who embodies stillness becomes rare, and rarity creates value. So the instruction is simple but not easy. Stop trying to be unforgettable through effort and start becoming unforgettable through emotional impact. Stop asking what you can give and start asking what state you create. Stop flooding the space and start holding it. Because when you become the place where calm returns or intensity awakens, comparison ends, rivals disappear, and pursuit reverses naturally, quietly, almost invisibly at first, often before she even admits it to herself, and this is how men who understand masculine energy, apply Old Stoic wisdom, and live the principles behind Stoicism win stop chasing women forever and start being chosen without asking. 4. The four emotional voids women chase. Deep down, every woman harbors an emotional gap. Not a sign of brokenness or weakness, but a byproduct of modern existence, with its relentless demands and contradictions. It's not that she's inherently flawed. It's that life today piles on pressures that erode certain inner resources. The constant juggle of career ambitions, social expectations, family obligations, self-image maintenance, and the facade of independence creates quiet shortages in places that matter most. She must perform at work, be composed in social circles, appear desirable yet not too needy, ambitious yet agreeable, all while navigating a digital landscape flooded with comparisons and curated perfection. Over months or years, something essential gets sidelined, neglected, starved. This emotional void doesn't scream for attention. It whispers, influencing her choices, reactions, and attractions in stealthy ways, shaping her without fanfare. And here's the game changer. This void isn't defined by what she verbalizes as her wants. Those are often red herring, surface-level distractions. It's rooted in what her nervous system truly hungers for, what her body and mind ache to replenish. After years of observation, study, and real-world application, I've distilled these voids down to four primary ones that dominate female attraction patterns: validation, excitement, escape, challenge. Not a sprawling list of endless possibilities, just four core deficits that explain the bulk of it. These aren't quirky personality add-ons. They're genuine emotional shortages carved out by routine monotony, societal pressures, boredom from repetitive interactions, or overexposure to predictable men who all blend into a bland sameness. When one of these voids goes unfilled for too long, it generates a magnetic pull. That's the essence of attraction in action. If a man stumbles into filling it or does so intentionally, he doesn't come across as special in a Hallmark card way. He feels enigmatic, inexplicable, indispensable. She might not pinpoint it as attraction initially, just a vague sense that his presence is different, vital, either calming her storms or electrifying her calm in ways she can't self-generate. This is where true power dynamics emerge in relationships. By becoming the filler of her emotional void, you transcend ordinary evaluation. You're no longer just another contender in a lineup judged by height, income, or humor. Instead, you're weighed against the agony of forfeiting that emotional bond, the discomfort of the void reopening. But beware, this power isn't benign or harmless. It forges dependence, which blooms into attachment. And if unchecked, attachment can morph into obsession. The boundary is razor thin, and many men cross it unwittingly, only to find themselves ensnared in a volatile situation they can't navigate. Grasping the void doesn't merely decode attraction. It reveals why things can veer into toxicity without proper awareness. Now that you've got the overview, the pivotal question is, which void dominates her landscape? And how does identifying it reshape every interaction that follows? Let's break down these voids one by one. Starting with validation, the most frequently botched element in the attraction playbook. Validation, the most misunderstood. Far too many men assume validation is a volume game. Crank it up with more compliments, more affirmations, more egoing reassurances, and desire will follow suit. Initially, it might seem effective. She blushes, engages more, draws closer. But then the tide turns. Because constant validation doesn't breed lasting attachment. It fosters complacency, a cozy comfort that's taken for granted. The human nervous system is wired for novelty. It habituates to predictability, tuning out what's always on tap. When validation becomes as reliable as tap water, it loses its sparkle, its impact. Women exist in a constant barrage of judgment, from Instagram likes to workplace feedback to dating app swipes. Attention is ubiquitous, commodified, and thus devalued. True power in validation lies in its scarcity and selectivity. Make it unpredictable, earned, doled out sparingly. This isn't about being stingy or cruel. It's about intentionality. Picture this. When she can't predict when your approval will land, maybe after she shares a vulnerable story or nails a personal goal, her brain lights up with dopamine anticipation. She starts tweaking her actions, not to impress you consciously, but to recapture that rewarding hit. Flood her with nonstop praise, and you signal that your validation is cheap, effortless to obtain. Withhold it completely, and you risk alienation without connection. But meet it out with purpose, coming and going like ocean waves, and it transforms into something she pursues instinctively. It's like training a muscle. Intermittent reinforcement builds strength far better than constant strain. Excitement, contrast, not chaos. Contrary to popular belief, most women aren't bored because of empty calendars or lackluster lives. Their emotional terrain is simply too flat, too predictable. Daily routines grind on, same job tasks, same small talk, same dating scripts recycled by interchangeable guys. Excitement isn't synonymous with reckless chaos or nonstop adventure. It's about injecting contrast, breaking the monotony with unexpected jolts. A man who delivers emotional peaks through witty banter, spontaneous plans, or charged moments slices through that dullness like a knife through butter. He doesn't bombard. He punctuates. Teasing sparks playful energy. Unpredictability piques curiosity. Mystery fuels her imagination, letting her mind do the heavy lifting. And once her imagination engages, filling in blanks with fantasies, you've graduated from mere entertainer to indispensable stimulus. The addiction isn't you personally. It's to the vivacity you unleash, the aliveness she feels amplified in your presence. Here's the resistant truth for many: women don't get addicted to men. They get addicted to the emotional highs men facilitate. Validation affirms her existence. Excitement revives her spirit. Blend them judiciously without overkill, and you cease being a commodity. You become her unique high, unreplicable by apps, friends, or self-help books. Attraction then self-perpetuates, no longer requiring your constant push. Escape, the quiet powerhouse. Escape is often overlooked because it masquerades as understated, almost mundane. From the outside, it seems low-key, not flashy like a fireworks show. But that's its stealth strength. Women are perpetually on curating images, juggling duties, meeting endless expectations from bosses, friends, family, even their own inner critic. Relaxation itself often demands performance, yoga classes, spa days, all with an undercurrent of stay put together. Rare is the space where she can truly let go unburdened. When you become that sanctuary, where explanations aren't needed, impressions aren't managed, composure isn't mandatory. Her physiology responds profoundly. Muscles unclench. Thoughts decelerate. Mental chatter hushes. This isn't about solving her issues like a handyman. It's about granting temporary asylum from them. You evolve into the exhale. She craves the reset button her system associates with peace. Since such relief is scarce in a hyper-connected world, its value skyrockets, turning you into a necessity rather than a nicety. Challenge boundaries, not jerk behavior. Challenge is the void most mangled by misconceptions, often equated with aloofness or jerk behavior. That's a gross oversimplification. Real challenge stems from resistance, not rudeness. The uncomfortable fact: most men are painfully easy, transparent as glass, overly eager, quick to capitulate. They overshare vulnerabilities too soon, invest disproportionately, rush to demonstrate worth before it's warranted. Ease suffocates desire. Humans intrinsically value what demands investment as effort implies significance. A man with firm boundaries, a self-contained life, not hinged on external approval, inherently poses a challenge. Not through contrived distance, but authentic anchoring. He doesn't crave her validation. So when he offers his, it resonates deeply. Scarcity here means discernment, not ghosting. Your time and energy aren't default gifts. They're selective rewards. She can't presume entitlement. She must participate, invest, pursue subtly. This friction sharpens her focus, elevating your perceived worth. Escape offers safety. Challenge delivers stimulation. Paired, they forge a compelling cycle, relaxation interspersed with pursuit, comfort laced with intrigue. Once looped, attraction pulls autonomously. MNO more forcing the issue. 5. The paradox that confuses men. Most men never notice where attraction quietly crosses into danger, and it always starts the same way, with desire slowly hardening into obsession. Not overnight, not dramatically, but subtly, almost politely, until wanting her stops being excitement and starts becoming a need for emotional balance. And this is where female psychology becomes brutally honest. Because when a man's inner stability depends on how a woman responds to him, he unknowingly hands over psychological leverage. And yes, that leverage can pull her closer even during conflict, even during distance. But don't confuse effectiveness with wisdom, because psychology tricks used without self-control turn corrosive fast, turning attraction into pressure, tension into anxiety, curiosity into quiet resentment. And this is why insecure men ruin what they touch, not because they want too much, but because they don't govern themselves. They withhold affection to inflate ego. They create emotional reliance to feel important, and then wonder why the connection collapses under its own weight. Because obsession does not create safety. It creates fear-based bonds that slowly erode trust, distort communication, and turn interaction into a silent power struggle. And here's the uncomfortable truth most men avoid. The most dangerous men are not the ones with no influence, but the ones with influence and no restraint. Because attraction is not about doing more, talking more, or proving more. That is noise. Real attraction is positioning. Positioning yourself in her emotional world as irreplaceable, not through force, but through clarity. And this is where mature understanding of female psychology changes everything. Because in capable hands, tension is not exploited. It's respected. Absence is not weaponized. It's balanced. Advancement is paired with retreat, not confusion. True strength is knowing you don't need to hook someone deeply just to feel whole. Because the moment you need obsession for validation, you've already lost your center. And without a center, no psychology tricks will save you. But when you shift from impressing her to understanding how dependency forms and why it destabilizes people, something powerful happens. You stop chasing, and gravity replaces effort. You stop trying to be wanted, and instead become the source of an emotional experience she cannot replicate elsewhere. Through calm presence, measured availability, and insight that sees beneath behavior instead of reacting to it. This is where want and need separate cleanly. And once you grasp that distinction, effort no longer equals value. Rejection stops cutting so deep. Patterns reveal themselves without emotional fog. And suddenly your control returns. Not control over her, but mastery over yourself. Your reactions become intentional. Your boundaries become non-negotiable. Your availability becomes selective. And your standards become visible without being announced. And ironically, this self-governance is what creates sustainability and attraction. Because men who do not beg are not ignored. Men who do not chase are not forgotten. And men who understand leverage do not need to prove anything extra. They simply exist in alignment. And that alignment is unsettling to the right women in the best possible way. Because absence begins to register, not as punishment, but as contrast. So if this reframed attraction for you, don't rush past it. Sit with it. Share it with a brother who's stuck grinding for validation. confused by intense attachment or sudden pullbacks. And ask yourself the only question that actually changes the game. Not, how do I make her want me? But why does my absence carry weight? Because the moment you understand that, everything shifts permanently. 6. Why silence is more powerful than reassurance. Most men panic the moment silence appears, and that panic quietly sabotages their attraction without them ever realizing it. Because when a delayed reply shows up, when there is a pause after intimacy, or when she pulls back just a little, their instinct is to rush in and fill the space with reassurance, explanations, and emotional noise, saying things like, "Did I do something wrong?" Or, "I just want you to know how I feel," or, "I don't want you to misunderstand." And while those words sound honest, what they actually communicate is anxiety, not connection. Don't do that, because silence is not emptiness, silence is space. And space is the arena where desire either fades away or grows stronger. And this is where understanding female psychology changes everything. Because when a man can sit inside that silence calmly, without chasing clarity, without trying to control the outcome, he sends a powerful message that goes far beyond words. That is, his emotional center is stable, his sense of self is intact, and his confidence does not depend on constant validation. Be clear about this. Women do not respond to emotional pressure. They respond to emotional safety mixed with mystery. And when you stay grounded in silence, her nervous system does something fascinating. It leans forward instead of pulling away. Because she feels presence without demand, attention without expectation, and strength without force, which is rare in modern dating and deeply magnetic. Don't confuse silence with ignoring or withdrawing. That is not the point. The point is to remain present without performing, to stay open without explaining yourself into a corner, because over-explaining is not clarity, it is fear dressed up as honesty, and fear never builds desire. It only creates reassurance loops that drain attraction over time. You must understand this one thing. Reassurance given too early or too often signals that you are trying to manage her emotions instead of trusting your own stability, and female psychology is wired to sense that imbalance immediately, which is why many psychology tricks fail when they are used mechanically instead of embodied emotionally. Be steady, be calm, be comfortable with not knowing, because uncertainty handled well becomes intrigue. And intrigue is far more powerful than certainty forced too soon, and this is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks in attraction, the ability to hold space without filling it. When silence shows up, don't rush to fix it, don't label it as danger, and don't assume it means something negative. Instead, allow it to breathe. Allow her to feel into her own emotions, because attraction grows when she feels free to choose, not when she feels managed. And this is a core principle of female psychology that most men never learn. They think effort creates desire, but emotional composure creates gravity. Be the man whose calm presence speaks louder than words, the man who does not collapse when ambiguity appears, the man who trusts that what is real does not need constant reinforcement, because when you stop chasing clarity, clarity often comes looking for you. And when you stop trying to secure desire, desire begins to move toward you naturally, drawn by the quiet confidence that says, "I am grounded whether you stay or go." And that mindset changes everything, because it shifts the dynamic from pursuit to invitation, from tension to curiosity, and from neediness to self-respect. Don't underestimate this. Silence carried with confidence is not passive, it is powerful. It is one of the deepest psychology tricks rooted in female psychology, and when you embody it consistently, you don't have to convince, explain, or chase, because your emotional steadiness does the work for you. And that is how attraction stops feeling fragile and starts feeling inevitable. 7. Why consistency is misunderstood by most men. Consistency does not mean constant availability. That is the first illusion you must drop. Most men think that if they are always there, always texting back, always explaining themselves, always emotionally open, they are proving value. They are not. They are proving predictability. And predictability kills tension. Don't confuse reliability with emotional overexposure. One builds trust. The other slowly drains desire. True consistency is quieter, stronger, more deliberate. It is not about showing up everywhere, all the time. It is about showing up the same way inside yourself, no matter what the situation tries to pull out of you. Be consistent in character, not in access. That is the shift most men never make. A man who reacts the same way every time is easy to map. Needy when things feel close. Anxious when distance appears. Overly agreeable when challenged. He thinks he is being kind. He thinks he is being flexible. But what he is really doing is handing over a predictable emotional script. Once a woman can read that script, tension fades. Mystery disappears. Desire softens into comfort, then into indifference. But a man whose values are consistent is different. His standards don't bend under emotional pressure. His boundaries don't collapse just because he feels attraction. His reactions are measured, not impulsive. That man creates trust without boredom. She knows what he stands for. She knows where he draws the line. But she does not know exactly how he will respond emotionally in every moment. And that balance matters. Because desire needs structure to feel safe. But it also needs uncertainty to stay alive. This is where many men misunderstand how to fall in love both for themselves and for a woman. Love is not built by flooding someone with access. It is built by emotional stability paired with self-respect. Don't chase closeness. Be someone closeness grows toward naturally. Consistency of self beats consistency of presence every time. Think of it like a lighthouse, not a streetlight. A lighthouse does not chase ships. It does not move closer when the ocean gets rough. It stands firm, predictable in purpose, calm in storms. That steadiness is what guides others toward it. That is the energy of a high-value man. Not loud, not performative, just solid. Be clear. Be grounded. Be selective with your emotional output. That is how you attract women without forcing anything. Don't explain yourself every time she pulls back. Don't overcorrect when silence appears. Don't rush to reassure when uncertainty shows up. Be steady. Be composed. Let your consistency live in your values, not in your availability. That restraint communicates confidence more loudly than words ever could. Here is the paradox most men miss. When you are always accessible, your presence loses weight. When you are consistent in who you are, but not always on demand, your presence gains gravity. She feels it when you enter a room. She notices it when you choose not to chase. She respects it before she fully understands it. That is how desire grows without manipulation. That is how attraction stays alive without gains. If you want to truly understand how to fall in love in a healthy way, stop outsourcing your emotional regulation. Handle your inner world first. Stability is attractive. Calm is memorable. Self-control is magnetic. This is why the high-value man is not reactive. He responds. He chooses. He does not leak emotion just to feel connected. And yes, this is exactly how you attract women long-term. Not by being everywhere, but by being anchored. Be predictable in your principles. Unpredictable in your emotional dependency. That combination builds safety and spark at the same time. Remember this. Desire does not grow from constant reassurance. It grows from trust mixed with space. From knowing a man is solid without knowing you fully own him. That is real consistency. And once you embody it, you stop chasing. Because suddenly, you don't have to. 8. Why self-respect quietly decides everything. Because the one thing that quietly makes women chase you over time is still self-respect. Not the surface version people talk about online, but the lived, disciplined form rooted in masculine energy and old Stoic wisdom. The kind that shows up when no one is watching and when choosing yourself feels risky. At the deepest level, women are not responding to your charm, your generosity, or your consistency. They're responding to how you treat yourself when your standards are tested. When a boundary creates silence. When staying would be easier than walking away. Every time you tolerate behavior that doesn't align with you just to keep access, every time you explain yourself instead of standing firm, every time you abandon your rhythm to match hers, you silently communicate your own valuation. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Because emotional self-betrayal always costs more than temporary loneliness. This is where modern men get lost. They believe attraction is built through effort alone, when in reality it is built through self command, through congruence, through the quiet confidence of a man who knows what he will and will not accept. That is pure stoicism when applied to modern relationships. Self respect is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not threaten or posture. It appears in what you do not chase, what you do not over explain, and what you are calmly willing to let go of without resentment. Paradoxically, the man who is most comfortable losing a connection rather than losing himself becomes the man whose presence carries weight. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Women feel this alignment instinctively, not logically. Their nervous system responds to stability, not persuasion. And stability is born from masculine energy that is regulated, grounded, and internally directed, not dependent on outcomes or validation. In modern life, this means you stop asking what every gesture means. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop trying to lock certainty too early. Instead, you lead yourself first. Your time, your emotions, your standards, your pace, because leadership always begins inward. This is where Old Stoic wisdom becomes practical power, not philosophy. A man who can sit with uncertainty without collapsing into anxiety or overinvestment becomes magnetic. Not because he withholds, but because he is whole. As Seneca wrote, a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. Desperation erodes attraction faster than silence ever could. Here is the instruction you must hear clearly. Stop negotiating your self-respect for connection. Stop softening your boundaries to avoid discomfort. Stop explaining your worth through effort. Attraction does not grow from convincing. It grows from coherence, from seeing a man whose actions, values, and limits align even under pressure. That alignment is felt as safety, not predictability, as strength, not rigidity. When you live this consistently, when masculine energy is expressed through calm exits, measured responses, and self-directed choices, women no longer feel the need to test you endlessly. Because your behavior already answers the question they are unconsciously asking, does this man abandon himself to keep me? When the answer is no, respect follows. And desire finally has space to grow. This is why self-respect creates gravity. And gravity does not beg. Gravity pulls. Slowly, steadily, inevitably. If you want to master this in modern life, apply it everywhere. In how you handle silence, in how you respond to mixed signals, in how you walk away without drama. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury, meaning you do not react. You regulate. Do this long enough, and you stop trying to make women chase you. Instead, you become the man they remember, the man they circle back to, the man whose presence lingers. Because self-respect is felt long after words fade. And that is Stoicism when in its truest form. Lived daily through Old Stoic wisdom, expressed through masculine energy, repeated until your life itself becomes the message. If you've stayed until the end, take this in slowly because this is the part that separates men who understand attraction from men who live it. Women are not pulled toward the man who proves the most, explains the most, or gives the most. They are pulled toward the man who is emotionally governed. The man who does not leak anxiety into his words. The man who does not abandon himself to keep access. The man who remains grounded when outcomes are uncertain. When you master emotional self-control, something fundamental changes. You stop negotiating for attention. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop reacting to every shift in energy. And in that stillness, your presence gains weight. Your absence gains meaning, not as a tactic, but as a natural consequence of self-respect. This is the truth most men never hear. Attraction does not deepen through effort alone. It deepens through emotional impact, through the way a woman's nervous system feels around you. Calm, awake, safe, engaged. When you become the place where her emotions settle or ignite in a way she cannot recreate elsewhere, you stop being an option she evaluates and become a presence she feels. That is when chasing disappears. Not because you withheld, not because you manipulated, but because you led yourself first. So stop asking how to make a woman want you. Ask why your standards are solid. Ask whether your boundaries hold under pressure. Ask if your silence is calm or anxious. Ask if your presence adds clarity or noise. Become the man whose values don't bend when attraction is on the line. The man who can walk away without resentment. The man who chooses instead of hoping to be chosen. If this message hit home, take one simple step like the video, because these truths save men years of confusion. And subscribe if you want to go deeper into real female psychology, masculine energy, and emotional mastery in modern dating. Because the goal isn't to make women chase you forever. The goal is to become so grounded, so self-directed, and so internally stable that chasing is no longer necessary. And when that happens, attraction stops feeling fragile and starts feeling inevitable.